this is MainstreetRob, and I'm on my village walks. Right now it's pouring rain in Kenmore, Ontario, the site of where I'm going next. Kenmore is a small village. I came across it on my way to the Metcalf Farmers Market, and has about 500 people according to Wikipedia, but according to other sources, somewhere between 200 and 300 people. Today I'm going to look through, hopefully without getting too wet, at some of the interesting points here. There's a background here in mills, of course, lots of history, a foundry with a very famous plough named after it. So bear with me, and hopefully the rain will let up. I'll see you in a few minutes. So as I walk toward the Castor River Bridge, I just wanted to point out this lovely church. I'm not sure whether it's a private residence now or not, but it says Presbyterian Church, 1903. There was a Baptist church here. I don't see it anymore. It was a frame church. But there was lots of activity here at the turn of the century with the mills. At the time, there was the Carkner mill, of course, the sawmills, and there was also two other mills, which when we get to the river, I'll show you where that was. But we're getting closer now to the river, the Castor River. It's a rather unique area here. So here we are on the Castor River Bridge, and we're looking east now. Very attractive looking colors at this time of the year. As you can see, the water here is as low as everywhere else. We've had a real drought this summer. But just over there on the trees, on the dark colored spruce trees, is probably the location for the artesian well used by the McArthur foundry. And the river itself curves a little to the left here, works its way back to the Carkner mill, which would be behind these trees here. So here we are looking west on the Castor River Bridge. I see, oh, there are some ducks in the water, or maybe geese. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe a loon. Very interesting looking bird. I'll have to take a good look at that later. Pretty hard to get down there. But this area at one time was the site of a sawmill and a grist mill. And if you go back into the atlases from about 1876, you'll see them located here. I think they were one of the early ones from the 1860s. When you look at this, it doesn't look like much of a river, but at the time, it was certainly attractive for mills. In 1830, John McDonald, who actually worked on the Rideau Canal, established the village. Not too many people at that time. It wasn't until 1840 that Peter McLaren, a Scotsman, came out here from Perthshire, Scotland. You'll find a lot of people that came here from Perthshire, Scotland, and he established a village and gave it the name Kenmore. Kenmore meaning the head, which would have been what it looked like where he came from in Scotland. And incidentally, John McMaster, the brother-in-law of Douglas Carkner, left here to go and find his opportunities in Seattle. And he had heard there are lots of cedar trees. And he found on Lake Washington another head, a shape, and he established a community there with the same name. So what you now find, Kenmore in the state of Washington, Kenmore in Scotland, and Kenmore here. So let's start our walk the Bicentennial Park. Lots of color still left in the leaves, but as you can see, a pretty substantial park. They have a beautiful parkland here that's well maintained. A baseball diamond you can see straight ahead, and over there we can see the outfield, which is pretty substantial. They must use that for soccer as well. Over here we have a concession booth. Maybe it's a change booth. Orange colored maple leaves still hanging around. Picnic area where I guess people can eat. Looks like maybe tennis courts over there. And in the distance we have the hockey rink, but certainly a nice community park for the folks here. We're going to move on now, do a little bit of walking, and see if we can get to the Carkner mills. Just going to do a little back street here for a few minutes on Jason Street. You can see lovely, well kept up homes here on large lots. This area over here, obviously an empty lot still. But homes here, it's within the city of Ottawa now, since I guess 2001 or thereabouts. And homes are comparable to what you might find in the city, except for larger lots, of course. And everyone here would have a septic system and a well, undoubtedly. But you can see they also have garbage pickup from the city. And no doubt in the winter, the roads are cleared by the city of Ottawa. The average price of homes here in Kenmore in the last 2 years, selling price has been about $602,000. That for comparable types of homes that you might see in Ottawa, probably about 675 to 700. So homes here are roughly $75,000 to $100,000 less. Obviously, very attractive homes, and as you can see, large lots, very private, very beautiful mature trees. Really a nice community to live in. Very much a modern community here, at least on this street, and no doubt people here work in the city of Ottawa. There's an interesting landmark. Let's see if I can get the steeple. Obviously an old church, the Ottawa Wedding Chapel. So you can rent a wedding chapel facility and have a wedding. And undoubtedly they will bring in an officiant. Very attractive site. You can see even the flowers at the front are quite beautiful. I think if you were looking for a place to be married in and you weren't particular about the religious aspects, this could be a very beautiful spot. The other side here I wanted to show you is the community center. They're obviously talking about reducing water use. And here Let's just go over here to this particular location. The center in every one of these historical towns and villages is the cenotaph. As you can see, in the First World War, Lieutenant Colin Sinclair, Private Thomas King, Private William Barclay, Sergeant Russell Carkner, a very popular name here, Sergeant W.H. Brown, and in the Second World War, Sergeant Pilot. There's another one, Duncan Carkner, Evan Desjardins, and I'm not sure what FLO Glen Loney is, but definitely lest we forget. This is the community center, clean looking building. It's got its tin roof, and you can see in the back there also the post office boxes. I don't see a post office here, unfortunately, but I know there was one established in 1853. Just take a quick look here at the front of the community hall. There is a women's auxiliary here that functions out of this community hall. But definitely looks nicer from the side. And here we'll just look down the street. Pretty soon we'll be at Carkner Street. But as you can see, it has sidewalks, has a very nice road, and we'll turn and go the other way. There's a gentleman who's working on getting his new pavement in. Only that way up there is toward the Bicentennial Park. This way is toward the river. Very prim, very proper. Always these small villages tend to be very, very neat. So if you ever want to try and estimate the number of people living in a community, here we have the super mailbox. I see approximately 175, maybe at the most 200 mailboxes, at an average of about 2.55 people for every mailbox. That would be somewhere close to 500 people in this community. So we're going to walk down Carkner Street right now. Very famous name here in Kenmore. You can see the little bridge over there, but at one time this was a mill operated by the Carkner family. But the story is that Duncan Carkner and his brother-in-law, John McMaster, came up from South Mountain, which is a good 20 or 30 kilometers from here, and decided at a very young age, in their 20s, that they were going to create a mill on the Castor River, a sawmill. And so they had a hard time actually getting land for the mill. And in fact, I believe that the mill was located right about there where this house is. It's on a private property now. And at one time, in 2004, there was a commemorative plaque that was put here, but I don't see it right now. Maybe we'll see it as we go along. Anyway, the two brothers-in-law, as it turned out, were bound and determined, even in their early 20s, to establish a mill on this property. And originally, they borrowed money at the exorbitant rate of 10% interest, which is really something in the 1880s. and they started to establish it. And the McArthurs, who were foremost landowners, decided to provide additional land for them, and so the Carkners operated here in Kenmore from 1876 until 1964. A long period of time. At one time they had 30 people working for them. They branched out into a number of things. Originally it was dressed timber, even sash and door, and even cheese boxes, which were very important to the cheese industry that existed at the time in many of these rural municipalities. And so we're just looking out here on the Castor River, which is quite low, of course. Beautiful location, but obviously a mill. And at one time, up the end of this street here, they had another mill that they located here. So they had it on both sides of the river. And as you can see in the distance, now it's farmland. In those days, I'm sure it was forested land. To establish their mill, the two young men had to bring their equipment up all the way from Morrisburg, which has to be a good 40 or 50 kilometers at least from here. And that would have been quite the challenge in those days because there were no railways. There were no trucks. There was nothing. So quite an undertaking. And as I said, the city of Ottawa was instrumental in providing a plaque here to commemorate this historical site. And so that could very well be part of it right there. You see that wall over there? Could very well have been part of the original mill. And I think I see the plaque way down there. If you can see the marigolds, I see a plaque. And that could very well be the commemorative plaque for the mill, a historical site in the city of Ottawa. And now, as we get to probably the most famous location in Kenmore, you don't see much except a bunch of cows and a lovely pastoral scene. But in reality, this was the site of the McArthur foundry. Finding that location was very difficult, and I was only fortunate enough to get a hold of archival maps from 1886 that identified this as being Lot 30, Concession 10. And after finding that location, I came to this one, which of course is right on the southern portion of Kenmore where the sign exists. But actually, if you look there in the trees, it was an artesian well. For those of you who aren't familiar with an artesian well, what it is a water source that does not require a pump to get water to the surface. Through pressure, from downward pressure onto things like an aquifer, the water is forced up to the surface. And for people like the McArthurs, Donald and John McArthur, who first settled this area as blacksmiths from Perthshire, Scotland, of course, this was a real boon. They set up their foundry in 1860 and started producing iron products such as kettles and water troughs for cattle and so on. But then they came upon the fact that this was such an agricultural area here that they could produce ploughs. And they designed what was called the McArthur plough. It became famous in this particular area, as all farmers had it. It was something pulled by horses, but for 60 years, the McArthur foundry produced the famous McArthur plough. And it was of such quality that virtually every farmer in this particular area, and probably far distant, would use it. 1960s, you could still acquire a McArthur plow. It's a very, very famous plow among the agricultural community. It's something that is truly Canadian, and it's something we should all be proud of. But we have no vestiges of any of it, either the foundry, the well, the household, or the plow. Just an aside, as I do these walks, village walks, it's becoming quite apparent to me that a lot of the history of certainly of Eastern Ontario has been lost. Finding, for example, this foundry, finding the Carkner mill. There are mills everywhere, and even the stations in Avonmore. All of this history has been lost. It's a very sad, sad thing. And as I look at it, I notice that the Carkners, Duncan McArthur's brother-in-law, went out to Seattle, created a mill out there, and the town was named Kenmore where he was. He was considered a founder. There are books and books and books that have been written on the early stages of development in Kenmore, Washington, a city of 23,000 people. There are walking trails that will take you to see some of those historic sites. They're still looked at. It's a very sad thing that our American friends can keep such a good tab on their history, including Canadians who went there, but Canadians are having a hard time looking after their history. So this is MainstreetRob on my way back from Kenmore. This is the Castor River to my right, and it's almost in Russell. So one lady from Kenmore managed to skate all the way here, which is a pretty significant way to go. But anyway, let's wrap up for Kenmore. Very interesting place, a lovely community, lots of interesting history. The McArthur plow from the famous foundry, the artesian well that I don't think is being used at all today, the famous Carkner sawmills, and of course the brother of Duncan, who went all the way out, John McMaster, went all the way out to Seattle to find his fortune, created another community called Kenmore. So we have a Scottish Kenmore, an Ontario Kenmore, and a United States Kenmore in the state of Washington. All of that is, of course, very interesting, but the sad thing is there aren't too many remnants. Thankfully, we have that plaque in Kenmore. So, goodbye to Kenmore. We'll try and see if we can find some other villages to walk through soon. But in the meantime, I wanted you to prepare yourself. We've got an interesting guest coming up, the librarian in Chrysler, who happens to be a world-class music singer, modern music for those younger people who are there. But who would ever think that somebody would have played in 17 countries around the world and be working as a librarian at Chrysler? So I'm going to try and put together a a little article on Kenmore, which you can find on my website, MainstreetRob.com. And I look forward to seeing you again soon on Main Street Rob's Village Walks.